Okay, we're now live.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Welcome to our special council meeting on July 8th. First of all, we would like to begin by acknowledging that we are in Robinson Superior Treaty Territory and that the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe and the Métis. Can I have approval of agenda? Everybody good with it? Any disclosures of interest? Seeing none, we'll get right into number one, other business. 2022 tax policy review.
This is a recommendation here from the treasurer that the 2022 tax ratio bylaw be drafted using 2021 adopted ratios and that no tax rate discounts be applied to commercial or industrial subclasses.
Okay. That's just normal procedure.
So we, in 2009, the council of the day did reduce their commercial ratio to the 1.98 where it remains today, and the purpose to do that had to do with taking us out of levy restrictions. So yeah, this is an annual bylaw and exercise that we do. The big note to take away from here, the first note, is that we are starting 2022 with slightly less funds. What your revenue neutral or notional rate is with the $11,741. But the big thing is the attachment to look at. So when you have to pass ratios that distributes the tax burden amongst the classes, the caution is if you reduce one ratio, what it does is it moves the tax burden from that tax class onto the other. In that table, under those scenarios, the first column is your status quo where we are. If you were to, for example, reduce your commercial ratio from 1.98 to 1.5, you'll see that it would put $100,000 onto your residential class, and your residential class already absorbs the majority of your tax burden at like 73%. Of the tax burden is absorbed through the residential class. So if you were to reduce your commercial ratio, it would be just right off the bat $100,000 that the residential class would have to absorb. So the recommendation is to keep your ratios at status quo. And this is just to illustrate why you do not want to change anything.
What was it prior to 1.98 or whenever? Big difference or not?
Let me see if I can find that very quickly.
And you know, another thing is this range of fairness there, once you move anything, it can only be moved closer to the provincial range of fairness that's on page 2 of Marlene's table there. You can never move it back up. So it's a permanent change.
Yeah.
Never move what back up?
So supposing you moved your commercial tax ratio down from 1.98, you moved it down 1.5, you can never move it back to 1.9 again.
Really?
Welcome.
Legislation.
Yeah.
So why would you move it to 1.5 anyway? Why not move it to 1.9?
Yeah,
If it
1.5.
was fair to do that,
That's 25%.
why would you not do the 1.9? Did you do it? Did you do that, or?
You could do that if you wanted to, but
If
the
it was
suggestion,
fair,
so
if it was fair to do that.
If it was, you could, so what Nathan is saying is that you could reduce your ratio. The impact is that if you were to reduce your ratio from 1.98 to 1.9, you would never be able to move it back up to 1.98 that it is. So basically, it's almost,
It would be a permanent shift onto the residential
Onto
tax
yeah.
class.
Yeah, but that doesn't, I mean, that's legislation, but why would you not have the opportunity to juggle or move your ratios around and not make it permanent? I don't understand why it's permanent.
Well, that's a question for your province.
Yeah.
Why?
Because there, under certain circumstances, you may want to adjust that, and then you may want to adjust it back in the future.
Exactly.
I think if you had a potentially if you had a larger, tax base, but I think right now if you look demographically at your residential class, right?
Yeah.
You know, they pay the majority, and they don't have the ability necessarily as a commercial enterprise does to, increase income. I mean, at the end of the day, it's a challenge for everybody right now. Nobody's disputing that there's a challenge, whether you're a residential person or you're a business person. There are challenges that exist out there for everybody, but there's more room for business enterprise to be able to adjust their income than there is for your residential class in Schreiber right now, probably, right?
And the province puts out a lot of this legislation with a wide brushstroke, you know what I mean? And what may work well for one municipality or some municipalities in Southern Ontario may not certainly work well here, so just something to keep in mind.
So what the recommendation here is to continue with status quo and the distribution of the ratios. Before that, to answer your question, in 2008, it was almost 2.08 was the ratio. So they did the council of the day for 2009, reduced it to the 1.98. And because anything over that threshold, it meant that if you put a 6% levy if you're above the threshold, if you put through a 6% levy increase through, it meant that your commercial class would only receive 50% of that increase, so that your other classes had to absorb that difference. So in essence, your other classes were taking on more of the tax burden. So the whole idea of actually reducing the ratio to the upper limit of the range of fairness is that your classes are paying their taxation based on their current value assessment, as opposed to getting protection by any kind of increase that goes through. So it really was trying to, the tools were implemented by the province back in the day to allow local freedom to get classes and taxpayers to be paying their real tax burden instead of being capped. So when you were above the 1.98, you were capped at how much taxes, and then everybody else had to pay. So this is, you're paying your fair share now. Everybody's paying their fair share.
Okay, everybody good with that? Good with the recommendation?
Yeah.
Doug, Dave?
Yep.
Okay. Number 2.
So number 2, if we start out with the recommendation that's before you in the verbiage report is that we put through a 10% levy increase. And which would equate to an increase of $247 approximately if all other things are the same from 21 to 22 for each individual property, meaning that their assessment didn't change. And that is slightly different than what your budget documents, your detailed budget documents are showing, because those show a 7.67% increase. So in the analysis portion of the Word document, that is showing that you're starting off with less money for 22 over 2021 of $11,741. So that already equates to almost 0.6% levy increase right there. You had insurance costs that increased by just under $29,000. Propane costs increased by 37%, and we're estimating that the overall increase for that is around $23,000. You also had OMPF funding, which is your annual provincial funding that you get, that decreased by just under 14,000. So just those things alone, are just over 77,000, almost 78, and that equates to a 3.7% levy increase, just those things, those 4 items. In addition to those, you have increased fuel costs. Although they are coming back down, they're definitely not into where we were in 21. You have your regular human resource increases, your collective bargaining unit increases. You also have several retirements in 2022, which do result in some dual coverage as well as training costs. And that is not likely. Succession planning is going to be one of the biggest things that you're going to need to do for sustainability of your organization over the next 5 years. You do have the potential for some significant I was gonna say overturn, but that's not the word I'm looking for. It escapes me at the moment. I will tell you, although a good news story is that collection efforts are incredible right now. I would say that our total arrears at this point in time is, and that's all interest, all years, is 356,000. So that's amazing, right? But with that, the flip side is that you are then budgeting for less revenue in your penalty and interest. But really, that is a good news story there. The flip side of that is if you have more money coming in and there's more collection, there's more money now that interest rates are also on the upswing. So there's, right, that is a good news bullet point. We're estimating most of the revenues as pre-pandemic averages, and that's the same for most of the expenses, because we are open and hopefully going forward and life, is going back to the normal. The big thing in here to remember is that, and why there's a difference between what the recommendation is and what the budget as presented is that the budget doesn't have anything in it for a transfer to reserve for capital infrastructure future needs. So you did have a service delivery review in 2015 that recommended a 2% levy increase, and you do have your newest asset management plan that is telling you that we should be putting 3% through. So this is to say that we need to be doing that.
Sorry there, Marlene, it's just our internet stream went off.
Oh, no.
I'll just have to restart the live stream.
Okay.
I don't know what's going on with the internet.
You're probably gonna get that all day.
Really,
Or,
eh?
I don't know about all day, but it's all over the place. Nobody's
Yeah,
got
eh?
any, everybody's just taking cash. Nobody's taking.
If it happens again,
All the-
Working here.
All the debit machines?
Yeah,
if it happens
really?
again,
It's
there's an
just
open
chaos
meeting.
in Robbins.
Well, the meeting is open.
This cost is
Yeah.
down?
It is open, so if it goes down again, I'd say then we just have to continue.
We're recording though, right?
Yes, it is,
Yeah.
it is recorded. I just have to, it's here.
Where did you hear that news about the internet? There's nothing on CBC this morning on that.
Oh, it's, Rogers had it on, TV Tel.
Okay.